From the Jennings Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University, this is Trailblazer Weekly, starring Carrick Segmeller and Drayson Ball.
Welcome inside Studio A, inside the Jennings Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University. It is time for another episode, another edition of Trailblazer Weekly, the show where we break down all things Dixie State athletics every Wednesday at 3 p.m. We are live on Radio Dixie 91.3, CEC TV, and the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page. I am Carrick Segmeller. He is Drayson Ball, and we are excited to get this thing going. A lot of stuff to get to today. Allie Franks is going to join us on the show today. She's the latest member of the 1,000 Point Club for the women's basketball program. We're going to play a little game called Fact or Fiction. It's kind of like our Know Your Foe game, but more along the lines of how well do we know our own basketball players. We're going to name a Trailblazer Weekly Game of the Week, kind of look ahead at the games this weekend, and we'll name our Player of the Week, our Blazer Beat, just tons of stuff to get to today. And before we dive really into the heart of it, just for about a minute here before we move on to our Blazer Beat, Drayson, did you hear the news yesterday? I'm sure you did. Greater Zion Stadium, big deal, huge deal.
Huge deal, yeah. It's fun for not only the community but for Dixie State and this Washington County to be able to partner up and kind of promote Dixie State and Greater Zion in this fashion. And obviously they've been wanting to get this renovation to the stadium going for a long time now. And the fact that we're getting that now after a couple of years of wanting to get it done, it's going to be really fun to see it develop. Absolutely.
And if you want more information on the Greater Zion Stadium deal, the news broke late last night, so our show is kind of already set in stone, and next week we're going to have a lot more on this on the show. But if you want to head over to DixieStateAthletics.com, you can read the press release, read all about the deal between the Greater Zion group and between Washington County and between Dixie State, and just how big it is. Dixie State is going to Division I. They need Division I facilities to be able to compete with recruits, but also to be able to get people here, and when opposing teams and their staffs come here, we have somewhere good to host them and not putting them up in the old rackety shack that is the press box right now. So big news, and that leads our Blazer Beat this week as we dive into our weekly Blazer Beat, kind of the headlines around Dixie State University, its campus, its athletics, and it's the Greater Zion Stadium deal. We just talked about it for a couple of minutes, but it's huge. A deal between the Greater Zion, between Dixie State, and between Washington County, and it will bring a state-of-the-art, brand-new press box and locker rooms and you name it on the home west side. A lot of people have been saying, hey, why did they redo the east side? That's where the visitors sit. How come? What about the home side? It's coming. The deal is made now, and they will get to work on that as soon as they can. The deal is in ink, and it's good to go. Men's basketball weekend sweep last week, wins over Colorado Christian and Regis. Women's basketball splitting the weekend, coming back to defeat Colorado Christian on Friday before not quite being able to come back and win against Regis on Saturday. Allie Franks joins the 1,000 Point Club, though, in that loss to Regis with 26 points on Saturday, just the fourth Dixie State women's basketball player to do so. And then women's swimming falling in a dual meet to Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona, though, the cream of the crop in competing in the Western Athletic Conference in swimming. And so it was a big deal to be able to see exactly what this women's swimming team was going to be up against. So those are our big headlines. I should also notice, we didn't get it in on our graphic, but should also note that some more all-region football stuff came out just yesterday. The Don Hansen All Super Region 4 teams. Chase Hess, third team. Aaron Simpson, second team. And James Baird, third team. So more all-region stuff for this women's basketball, or for this football team. Good stuff.
A lot of good stuff bringing in, and had a great season and well-deserved.
Speaking of women's basketball, so I was getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's name our Campus Store Player of the Week from this last week. And Drayson, I don't know how you can have a player join the 1,000 point club and have that not be your player of the week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Allie Franks is our player of the week, and she was absolutely tremendous and joined the 1,000 point club following a 26-point performance against Regis in that last game on Saturday. And I mean, she's been great throughout her entire career, and obviously that being noted with being the 4th member of the 1,000 point club and still counting with a handful of games left in this season.
Yeah, she could move up as high as number 2, and if she really went off, I mean, she could end up at number 1. They're running out of games. But congratulations to Allie Franks, our Campus Store Player of the Week this week. And she's going to join us a little bit later in the show. We'll be able to ask her about, hey, what's it like scoring 1,000 career points? We'll talk to her about this year's team, what makes this team click. So congratulations to Allie. A huge accomplishment, and excited for her and the track that this women's basketball team is on as well. Speaking of this women's basketball team, that's kind of what we want to focus the last few minutes of this segment on, kind of the heart of this segment, and it's our question of the day. We'll lead our show, this first segment, with a question of the day each and every week, and this week's question is one that I think is fair, and it's one that we've been waiting to see if it'd be more of a story to develop, and sure enough, it has. Dixie State women's basketball has struggled a little bit at home, which is not normally what you see. Normally it's struggle on the road, you win at home. But this year there's been some struggles at the home. They're 3-4 in conference play at home and 4-0 on the road. So right off the bat, you should know, and we're going to see some numbers here throughout this segment. They have played 3 more games at home than they have on the road. But there is certainly a trend forming that for one reason or the other, this women's basketball team is struggling a little bit more at home, and they know it. Of all people, they know it, and they're trying to sort it out.
It's certainly an interesting dynamic because, I mean, like you mentioned, you expect to win your games at home because that's why they call it home court advantage, right? You should have an advantage playing in the gym that you practice in with your home crowd, the home fans that are supporting you. On the road, it's tough, and we're going to have a chance to hopefully ask Allie Franks about maybe why they're having some struggles at home. But I mean, I think one of the main reasons for it is they're just not getting off to great starts at home. And now I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because they don't necessarily have the focus that you have. I mean, in a road game, you have to go in and have guns a-blazing from the get-go. And maybe you don't have that same mentality at home at this point in the season, and you just kind of almost expect to play well at home. And that's not the case. I mean, they have maybe had a little bit of an easier schedule on the road to this point, and they've played maybe some tougher teams at home, and that's certainly a factor. But you feel like even if you're playing a team that's maybe a little bit better than you on paper, if you're playing them at home, that should negate any advantage that they might have if they're quote-unquote better on paper. So you feel like you should have the advantage over those types of teams, whereas on the road, you lose that advantage even if you're a little bit better team. So it goes kind of both ways, and so that may be one of the biggest factors as to why, in my opinion, they've been struggling so much at home.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the schedule, and you didn't put a ton into it, but in terms of what you mentioned on it, but for me, that is a big thing, and it is concerning to lose more games at home than on the road so far. They haven't lost on the road yet. They're 4-0 on the road. But when you look at the schedule, though, and let me just say, winning any game on the road in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference is an accomplishment because of the travel. And so that's the great equalizer in this conference. But if you look at the combined record of Dixie State's home opponents against the combined record of Dixie State's road opponents, it breaks down like this. Dixie State's home conference opponents have a combined 41-36 record. So that's just over 50%, about a 53% clip. On the road, the combined record of those opponents is 11-33. So you're down to about a 25% winning percentage for those teams. The one exception is MSU Denver is the only road opponent Dixie State has played that has a winning record in the RMAC. However, I am with you on the fact that should, if you're bringing a Westminster in, you're bringing a Black Hills State in, you're bringing a Colorado School of Mines, and Black Hills State and Colorado School of Mines are 2 of the games that Dixie State won at home. But, you bringing those teams in, you should want to protect home court. And it's not that they don't, but I think you made a good point in saying, maybe it's the focus. Maybe it's you're more comfortable, so your guard's down a little bit. I don't know what it is. And they're certainly trying to figure things out. One thing that's different is actually the scoring early on in the games.
Yeah, and that leads perfectly into our Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers feature, which we'll quickly jump into here. It basically just comes down to scoring points. Obviously, that's the name of the game as we roll into our Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers feature. Dixie State at home only averaging 63 points per game. They're allowing just under 67 points per game, whereas on the road, they're much better offensively, averaging 70 points per game, but they're only allowing 57 points per game on the road. That's remarkable. Anytime you get under 60 points, especially on the road, it gives yourself a great chance. They're averaging 43% from the field on the road compared to 38% from the field here at home. And they're getting 5 more field goal attempts on the road than they are at home. And that has to do with, obviously, the turnovers. 12.9 turnovers, 12.3 turnovers on the road compared to 14.9 turnovers here at home. So you're getting more possessions on the road, and you're getting more field goals on the road. You get 5 more field goal attempts per game. Maybe you get 5 or maybe 6 points off those field goals. If you get those same field goal attempts at home and you make them, that means you lose, 4-point loss to Westminster, you win that game. A 2-point loss to South Dakota Mines, you win that game. And then Regis this last weekend, you lost by 9, but you get 5 or 6 extra points on those extra field goal attempts. You never know how that might swing the momentum. Last thing I'll mention for Dixie State is the steals. We don't talk a lot about steals because that kind of gets captured into turnovers a little bit, but not all turnovers are created similarly. You always hear live ball turnovers. Well, Dixie State is getting 9 steals per game on the road compared to just 5 at home. And if you get those steals, that turns into a live ball turnover, which then in turn could get you out in the fast break and running. And when you're on the fast break, it puts more pressure on the defense to get back and defend their basket. Whereas a dead ball turnover, the other team throws it out of bounds, dead ball, they get back on defense, you pass it in, and we're back to normal. Whereas if you get a steal and you get out in the fast break, that can get you some easy points on the road, and then that helps swing the momentum, quiet the crowd on the road. It's something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but it's important.
Yeah, and one of the things that right along with that is assists and moving the ball and creating those turnovers and getting down offensively. And if you look, Dixie State is averaging more assists per game on the road than at home, which when I saw that kind of shocked me because it's not really like this, but you would expect to get more assists at home just because you have the home stat crew. That's how basketball has been from the beginning of time. But you look, and during conference play, Dixie State is averaging more assists per game on the road than at home, and that shows me that the offense is just flowing better on the road. There are more clear-cut opportunities where those people keeping stats can see, that was a clear-cut assist. They're having more of those on the road than at home. And they're just and it starts with, and you mentioned the scoring too, but Dixie State is being outscored in first, second, and third quarter at home. And then having a big fourth quarter, they're having to dig themselves out of holes a lot. And that offense is just taking a long time to get going. Yeah,
being outscored by 55 points through those first 3 quarters overall in the 7 home games. And then obviously they have, like you mentioned, they have a really good fourth quarter because they try to have to dig out of that hole. But they're outscoring opponents by 45 in those same first 3 quarters on the road. That's 100 points difference. That's huge when you're talking about 11 games. That's 10 points a game almost difference between home and on the road.
And you mentioned that. We mentioned that home schedule doesn't get any easier this week. First place, Colorado Mesa Friday night. Third place, Western Colorado Saturday night. So we'll see if they can work some magic, get a win or two this weekend, and we'll look and see this next week on Trailblazer Weekly. We'll let you know how everything went. We certainly don't have all the answers as far as that goes. It was a trend that we've been noticing. Wanted to make that our question of the day. We'll see what Coach Gustin and the players can draw up. Speaking of basketball and speaking of having all the answers, we got to take a break because we've got Fact or Fiction coming at you. It's pretty much like our Know Your Foe game, but we're talking Trailblazers coming up. How well do we know our Trailblazer basketball players? We'll find out on Fact or Fiction right after this timeout.
For over a century, Dixie State University has been shaping the Trailblazers of tomorrow by providing a culture of active learning, active life. With a paradigm of real-world experience mixed with cutting-edge technologies and rich traditions, we provide one of the most affordable educations in the West, set against the most stunning backdrop on the planet.
All right, man. I need you to go deep.
All right, I'll catch this one, I promise. Post route, back of the end zone.
Got it. Let's do it.
We may not always play good, but when we want to look good, we come to the Dixie State Campus Store.
Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center. We'll see you there.
Radio Dixie 91.3, Young the Giant, something to believe in.
John, what song do you want to hear?
Next, Miss Calendris. You'll be on the SWAT team and the restaurant team.
That's a fantastic situation. I should talk to you. I was going to talk to you last time.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
There is a place where rocks bleed and nature blushes on a battlefield green with envy, where dimples determine destiny and a tiny wooden T holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where friends are opponents and opponents are friends, where the prize is elusive, the conquest is captivating, and the score isn't settled till the drinks are down. There is a place.
Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not as they seem.
Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating, funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb-driven cattle, be a hero in the strife.
Lives of great men all remind us that our lives can be sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate. Still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait.
Today's show is brought to you by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official source for DSU Trailblazer clothing, providing students with textbooks, as well as educational, office, and art supplies. Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center, the Dixie State Campus Store, proud sponsor of Trailblazer Weekly.
It's time for Fact or Fiction on Trailblazer Weekly.
Inside Trailblazer Weekly, it is indeed time for Fact or Fiction. You know, when we play Know Your Foe, we're talking about the opponent. But today, we want to know how well we know our Trailblazer basketball players and the teams and the stats and the numbers they've been putting up so far this season. So we've got Jeremy Joseph, one of our great assistants behind the scenes here at Trailblazer Weekly, also helps us out in the athletics department. He's here to ask some questions. And how's this working, Jeremy? You've got how many questions?
Got 6 questions, 2 tiebreakers. So
2 tiebreakers.
8 total.
So there will be no ties this time.
Tie good. We had a tie last time on Know Your Foe, which none of us liked. So I guess what I'm assuming is you're going to give maybe a stat, or you're going to give us a player, and we're going to have to determine which one of the stats is fact, or which one is fiction, or which one of the players. Is that kind of how it's going to go?
Pretty much what it is. It's a team stat or a player stat.
A team stat or a player stat that he's going to give us basically a multiple choice. We're going to have to determine which one is fact, which one is fiction.
Yeah.
Let's rock and roll. Cue the game show music if you've got it. Let's go.
Question one.
Question 1. The Dixie State women's basketball team shot their highest three-point percentage at 52.4 this year against which RMAC opponent? Regis, Black Hills State, or Colorado School of Mines?
Women's team shot their highest three-point percentage of the year against which RMAC opponent? Regis Black Hill State or Colorado School of Mines? So we're talking.
No, we're using the microboards just like we do to your foe. So.
All right.
Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Reveal on. Want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I said Colorado School of Mines.
And I said Black Hill State.
Answer is. It's been pretty recent.
Colorado School of Mines.
Colorado School of Mines. All right.
January 4th.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been fairly recently, and it was not the Regis game.
Yeah.
All right. Carrick's 1-0. You got our we got our scorebook hopefully there on the screen there.
Carrick in the lead.
Got it.
Playing a little fact or fiction with our Trailblazer basketball teams and players. If you're listening on radio, we'll try to keep you up to date as much as possible. So, Jeremy, question 2. Let's roll.
All right. Out of the 17 women's basketball games this season, how many has Allie Frank scored in double digits? So how many times has she scored in double digits? A, 11, B, 9, or C, 13?
How many times has Allie Frank scored in double digits? So, all right, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say 11. 11 games, so A, 11 games.
And I've got 13.
All right, Jason got it.
Oh, 11. There we go.
All pretty close.
11 games. Now, can you name all 11? I'd be interested
11?
to know.
How did I know that? I wrote that stat. Did you pull that from my last game recap?
No, you gave me that question. Surprised you didn't get it right.
So you're supplying him with questions? I don't know. I don't see how that's fair.
Obviously,
you know the questions.
Obviously, it didn't work. I got the question wrong. So we're tied at 1.
Fair enough. 1-1.
Playing mind
Question
games.
number 3.
Which opponent did the Dixie State men's basketball team attempt the most three-point field goals against? A, Texas A&M Commerce, B, New Mexico Highlands, or C, Western Oregon?
So which opponent did the men's basketball team attempt the most three-point field goal attempts? So it's interesting because they're attempting more three-point field goals per game this season than they have in the past. Yeah. So this is going to be
a lot of shooters.
Am I revealing first?
Go ahead.
This time, I'm going with Highlands.
I would agree. I'm going to go with Highlands as well.
It was their highest scoring game, and they played in overtime, so that's extra time to get more shots up.
My atrocious handwriting, I'm also going to agree with Highlands.
Western Oregon was actually the answer.
Western Oregon.
Yeah, tough game, but they put up a lot of threes.
I actually remember that game and thinking that they are shooting way too many threes.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, so
they hit more against Highlands though.
Interesting stuff.
So they had better shooting
percentage, yeah.
Shooting percentage. All right, we're tied at 1 after 3 questions.
After 3 questions, going to 8 questions, right? Or
6 questions, 2 tiebreakers if we need them.
Just in case we need them. All right, question 4.
All right, here's a tricky one. Out of the 3 men's basketball players listed below, which has attempted the most free throws this season? A, Jared Green, B, Jacob Nichols, or C, Andre Wilson?
Which one of those 3 has attempted more free throws this season?
Yep. Just attempts.
Attempts this season. Okay. See, these are questions that it's hard to study because you don't really know a whole lot, which stat is going to be pulled because there's so many stats. I'm going to go, and it's my turn to reveal first, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say Jacob Nichols.
I'll go with Jared Green.
Jason got it.
Jacob Nichols. All right. Fair enough. Very well done. So 2-1. 2-1, and I think we're going into question 5?
Yep, 2 questions left.
Question 5 on fact or fiction. Carrick and I trying to determine which one of these stats or which one of these players, based on the question that's asked, which answer is fact and which one is fiction. We're on question 5. And
so if you get this one and I don't, that pretty much seals the deal, right?
Yeah.
This is question 5.
As long as all the questions are worth 1 point, because we've had that happen in the past where previous. I'm not gonna mention any specific examples.
You don't need to have any bad feelings, any bad memories coming up when I won Know Your Foe the first time we played it this year.
I wasn't bringing up any specific examples, but anyway, question 5.
Okay.
Let's move on.
All right, let's go. The Dixie State women's basketball team has more personal fouls than their opponents this season. True or false? More personal fouls.
Oh, so this is just a true or false. Women's basketball team has more personal fouls than their opponents this season. Do you have the answer?
Do you?
Well, I'm writing it down, but it's your turn to reveal first. So, you go ahead.
I'm gonna say true.
I'm also going to say true.
It's false. Dixie State has 259 and their opponents has 295.
Fair enough. I mean, that's actually good for me. It's good that I picked the same answer as you, Kerrigan, because even if I got it wrong, then you got it wrong too. So
all right.
Hopefully the next
I have to win this round
to, get this
to
one,
force a tiebreaker.
And we go into a tiebreaker. All right.
How many times have our basketball teams had to come back this year? You know what? Let's go. Let the comeback begin.
Fair enough.
We're going to end this thing on a 3-0 run.
Final question.
2-0 run.
Does the Dixie State men's basketball team have over or under 50 block shots on the season?
Over or under 50 blocked shots on the season?
A lot of blocks. Okay. It's my turn to reveal first, I guess. So
hold on. Don't reveal your answer yet. I got to think about this. This is potentially our last question.
Well, we are running out of time on the segment. If we need to go into a tiebreaker.
How many games? What's the men's basketball record? 14-3.
I'm not giving you any.
There's 17 games. If it was 50 blocks,
it's doable.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say under.
I'm gonna say over.
They have 44 blocks this season.
There it is. There it is, and the bad loser that is Carrick Segmiller. So that's it. That'll do it. I win. Drayson wins 3-1, and I think what do we do? Do we add this to the total score, include it in with Know Your Foe, or what do we do?
I think we just this was a test to see how this fact or fiction game would go. It's a great practice round, guys. Good job. Appreciate it, Jeremy. No, congratulations. Good win, Drayson. And we'll just add this to the total. So Drayson has a 2.5 to a 1.5 lead since we tied.
Fair enough.
The third time we played Know Your Foe. So Drayson takes the lead, and we're going to have to start playing more games like this so we can see who is the champion at the end of the season.
I just figured that we don't have a whole lot of good shot blockers on the team, so I figured under 50 would be a pretty safe bet, because I knew you'd probably go over because you talk yourself into it. So I use a little bit of strategy there, knowing that I don't really feel like we had a lot of blocks. No. So
Drayson thinks he's so smart. So
hey, who won?
Drayson did win. Speaking of numbers and someone who's putting up big numbers this year and who is really helping lead her team, she was our Campus Store Player of the Week this week, and Allie Franks. She was actually one of our questions. She scored in double digits 11 times, and including 26 points on Saturday to become the 4th Dixie State women's basketball player to join the 1,000-point club. It's Allie Franks. She will join us next on the set at Trailblazer Weekly to talk about that. Drayson's making foolish signs over here. Allie Franks, waiting to join us next on Trailblazer Weekly. Stick with us.
You know, we may have started out small, but we were great. Families and fans rallied behind their team. The community cared, and everyone showed up to cheer. Now, we're bigger than ever. Dixie State is going to Division I.
Here we go in transition, and he throws it down with one hand. Lobs. Catch me. Touchdown, Trailblazer.
But at the end of the day, it's the community and fans that make us great. Whether you give $5 or $1,000, every dollar, every seat in the stands, every one of you can help blaze our trail to Division I athletics, because this is our team.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear, because for 75 years, he's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So keep the animals safe, especially the cute shirtless one. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
I take the road less traveled. Run free, unwind, unravel. Someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique.
And your mother.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
Let's go. Take the ball out there.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly on this Wednesday afternoon. We are live on CEC TV, Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, and the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page. Carrick Sagmiller, Drayson Ball, and joining us on the set is the newest member of the Dixie State Women's Basketball 1,000 Point Club, senior guard Allie Franks. Thanks so much for stopping by today, Allie.
Of course, thank you.
We always enjoy having our student athletes on and getting to know you all just a little bit better. And we just want to dive right into it, have some fun with this interview and kind of reflect on this season. It's been a fantastic season for you and for the women's basketball team. Talk about your time here at Dixie State. Obviously, you're a four-year senior, and we haven't had a four-year senior in this program since, I want to say, and I'd have to fact check this a little bit later, I want to say the 2014-15 season would have been the last four-year senior that graduated. You're the first four-year senior of the J.D. Gustin era. Yes. And just what a fantastic career. So we'll talk about all that stuff, but obviously we'll start with the elephant in the room, and I mentioned it coming back from break, the 1,000 Point Club. Did you know you were getting close? And then kind of what was your immediate reaction when you found out after the game that, yeah, indeed, I have gone over 1,000 career points?
Yeah, so it all honestly comes back to my mom. My mom read it somewhere. I mean, she might have even looked it up, and she's like, hey, there's a possibility you can get 1,000 points this season. And I mean, that was that. And then after the end of the game, I did hear it during the game, and I was like, that was the bucket. Like, what? And then, like, it was maybe 3 seconds of fame or joy in my head, and it was like, we got to finish this. And then after the game, I mean, heads are down. We lost the game we wanted to win, and, you know, you walk away, and I didn't think about it. And then that night, my family was, like, having it fit. They were so pumped and so happy, and I'm like, I was kind of like the Debbie Downer, like, I'm happy I accomplished it, but we didn't get what we wanted. But, no, it definitely, my family, I think, was counting that down.
Well, and I think that reiterates something that I think I mentioned on the broadcast, Drayson, was that, you know, she'll probably be excited, but obviously the win would have been probably more important in that situation. But you know, basketball's a team game, and especially this year, you can see different people stepping up, and you know, whether it's you or London or Maddie or Chesney or Kesley, whoever it may be, someone else is stepping up every night. But at the end of the day, and as your college career winds down, you know, it's got to mean something special. I mean, there's only 3 others in this Dixie State women's basketball program. And we're talking the entirety of the program because it was a 2-year program before the D2 era. So, I mean, it's nearly impossible to get to 1,000 points in 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're part of an elite club, and what does that mean to you? I mean, just, thinking about just your individual basketball career, how long you've been playing the game, how much you love it, how much does that mean to you to be a part of the 1,000-point club?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you can hit like a personal goal, it just kind of reminds yourself that all those extra reps, the time you put into this game, like it's worth it. It pays off. Of course, you want the best record, but to walk away college basketball player after 4 years and accomplishing this, it's going to leave me with a smile on my face.
Chatting with Allie Franks, senior on the women's basketball team, newest member of the 1,000-point club as we are continuing live on Trailblazer Weekly. And Allie, obviously, it's been a long journey for you, obviously, coming into the program where, to be honest, it wasn't a very good program at the time. And you've seen this program develop through head coach J.D. Gustin and along with a lot of great players like yourself into a very successful program, if I do say so myself. 12-5 this season, 7-4 in conference play. Where are you at as far as how happy you are with this season, and where do you want to be at the end of the season? Obviously, you have lofty goals. Where are you at right now as far as how you've done this season and what your kind of plans are for the future?
Well, we take every home game pretty personal. You never want to lose when someone walks into like the gym that you sweat on, you bleed on every day. And our goal was to go undefeated at home and then, do our best on the road. And we haven't been able to do that, but we get 4 more chances. And I think if we finish strong at home and, just work hard on the road, I think we're going to shock some people.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's been a little bit of the opposite. You've been perfect on the road, at least in conference play. You've been 4-0 on the road in conference play and had some struggles at home. What do you attribute that to? Is it just maybe you expected a little more? And so what do you think? Why have you been having so much troubles at home, and how can you change that with a big matchup coming up this weekend?
I mean, the only thing I could think of, like when you're on the road, you have to focus more. You have to like get everything right. And I think we need to move that focus into home games as well, especially having, the number 1 and number 3 team stepping into our gym this weekend.
Chatting with Allie Franks here on Trailblazer Weekly, the senior guard. And big games coming up this weekend against Colorado Mesa and Western Colorado. Of course, one game at a time. You've been a part of 4 different teams with some drastic changes in roster each year. What's this year been like in terms of that team and that chemistry? And you've got players that you've played with for a couple of years, players that are brand new. What's it been like kind of morphing into what we know now as the 2019-20 Dixie State women's basketball team?
I think the huge difference now is every player on the bench wants everyone on the floor to make that basket. And there's no like moping on the bench or moping in the locker room after. And we've had that struggle. I mean, just to be honest, after a game, if there wasn't a good performance and a win, not everyone's necessarily happy. But I mean, as a senior and going through this for 4 years, this year, it's honestly blown my mind. Not that I didn't think we couldn't accomplish it, but I've never got to see it. And we get it now. We have it.
As you look over your, and I know it's not over yet. We've got a lot of basketball to play this. And we're not, senior night's not for almost a month, and we're not totally thinking about that yet. We don't want to put that on you yet. But do you have a favorite? I know that's hard, putting you on the spot. Do you have a favorite moment at Dixie State, or a favorite game, or I don't know if it's your first 3-pointer or your, the 1,000-point club? What do you have a favorite moment over these 4 years that you've been here?
Oh, no.
I know that's putting you on the spot. I know that's
I still have to go back to the triple overtime win last season, because one, we scored 100 points, and women's basketball doesn't really get, the luxury of doing that very often. And I mean, we sent it over in a buzzer beater, and that game will always be an all-time favorite.
Chatting with Allie Franks here live on Trailblazer Weekly. And, Allie, obviously we talked a little bit about this weekend. You're bringing in the number 1 team in the conference, undefeated in conference play, Colorado Mesa. Maybe a little bit extra stakes because there's a former Dixie State player on their team that'll be returning for the first time, at least in conference play, to the Burns Arena. First of all, how do you prepare for a team as good as Colorado Mesa that is going to come in and give you everything you got? Second of all, is there a little extra motivation knowing that the former player is coming back to town?
Yeah, well, preparing, I mean, with the team that defensively, I mean, they might be the best. It comes down to us being disciplined. Whatever team's more disciplined, because we have a great defense too. I think the most disciplined offense is going to win that game. And, I mean, yes, we have a former player coming in that Burns, and, you know, we faced that the first conference game as it was. And I think we let it get too emotional that first time, and, like, you live and you learn. And I think this one we're just going to have a level head. And, I mean, I remember playing with her and seeing how hard she worked, and I'm looking forward to having a battle against that and, like, feel how they felt when she was on our side.
And obviously, you know, you got your work cut out for you, but you're in a good spot right now as far as in the conference play, and 7-4 is one of the better starts for the last handful of years before I can even remember. And obviously, you know, 26 points against Regis the other night. You had a career high 27 just a few weekends ago here at home. You've been playing tremendous all season. And every time we have on the broadcast, we have, you know, maybe one of your coaches on, and we ask them, you know, who's kind of the leader in the locker room, and they always say you. How is it that you've, you know, kind of been able to take in that leadership role and be so, you know, a leader, you know, positive as a leader in that locker room for you?
Yeah, I think, well, I've been here, I mean, the longest, so I can say I know the most. Like, coach walks in a gym, I can kind of read what he wants or, you know, how he's feeling. And I think just being confident in that role as a leader, you have to love your teammates in order to, like, help them. And, I mean, we have amazing girls, and I love them so much that I want to give them every opportunity that they can get.
Allie, what would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've taken from your career and your time, you know, both on the court and academically here at Dixie State?
That you don't know as much as you think you do. As being an athlete, I want to say that I'm always right. Or if my coach says something, you can have a voice in your head saying, no, like that, you know, that's not true. Or like, you can hit that shot. It's like, no, coach knows everything. Coach is one of the smartest basketball players. Like, he just knows the game. And you have to hear him, and you have to just trust him, do what he says, and it always works out. It always does.
Along those lines, if you could go back and, you know, 4 years ago and stop freshman Allie Franks before she went in the gym for her first practice at Dixie State, what message would you give her about what's to come in the next 4 years, and maybe a tip and some advice on how to handle everything that's coming up over those 4 years?
Yeah, I actually really wish I could have that conversation with younger me. I just want to tell myself that, like, when things get hard, lean on someone. I think being young and, like, having people that I necessarily didn't want to be like, but they were my leaders at the time, that I could separate myself. I did separate myself, and I think if I wouldn't have gone through some things alone, I probably would have been more successful.
I liked what you said about Coach Gustin and how, you know, you've just kind of learned to defer to him a little bit and kind of take a lot of his advice. Obviously, he's turned this program around. We talked about that a little bit ago. But what have you noticed in him that has been so successful in relating to your teammates and relating to you? And, you know, what has he done that's made this program so successful in the last couple seasons?
His coaching style, or what he preaches, is really consistent. I kid you not, I have heard the same things probably a million times for 4 years. And it's, I mean, you have to say it until, like, it gets to our head. And I think that is why we're successful. Like, when you get down to the paint, jump stop, kick out alone, I've heard probably millions and millions of times. And he just preaches, you know, the same things until we understand it.
And how important is it? I mean, obviously, there's a coach that says that, and then there's the teammates. You know, the team has to buy into that. How have you guys as a team been able to, you know, trust Coach Gustin? And because there's a lot of times, you know, you get a coach or you get a player or two who doesn't buy in, and then it affects the rest of the team. How is it that you guys have just been able to all buy in, it seems like, and have great chemistry on the floor and buy into his system?
Yeah, so buying in has definitely, I think, been the struggle since I've been here for 4 years. And not to give him an excuse, but the people in the past, I understand why it was hard for them to buy in. Because, I mean, some of them had 4 different coaches in 4 years. But now that, like, we knew, you know, JD is going to be here, you know, we have a coach that's, you know, wants it for us. I can say this year has been the strongest buy-in aspect. I believe everyone trusts Coach, and I believe we can do something special with that.
Time winding down in the interview with Allie Franks, Dixie State women's basketball senior guard and newest member of the 1,000-point club. And just to throw those other 3 names out, Kayla Miller, 4-year player, was a 3-point threat from outside here. Taylor Mann, you knew Taylor. And then Jonna Brown. She's a Dixie State Athletics legend, played softball and basketball. Those are the other 3 names in the 1,000-point club, so some pretty elite company there. We'd like to finish up with some rapid fire, and I think we've had you on the show in the past, so you probably know a little bit of what's coming, but you're from California, right? Yeah. So does that mean you're a Lakers fan by default? Clippers, Kings?
I was a Spurs,
favorite basketball team, NBA or WNBA?
Sorry, I can't say watch the WNBA. I can't say watch basketball, for being honest, but Kawhi Leonard's my favorite player, so I was a Spurs fan forever. And I haven't watched it really since he left the Spurs.
Interesting, because
sorry to let you down.
She's from California. If he went to the Clippers, you'd think if he's your favorite player.
Yeah, anyway,
I know. I think we remember, if I asked you last time who your favorite basketball player, I feel like you said Kyrie Irving, but am I wrong? Has it changed, or?
I think it's been Kawhi for
gotcha.
quite some time.
I may have got mixed up. I thought it was Kyrie Irving.
A lot of different people on the show.
Fair enough. That's
true.
Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard. Not a bad choice.
Let's play a little Would You Rather. Last thing before we end this interview. Would you rather make a 3-pointer that beats the buzzer and sends it to overtime, or make a game-winning layup?
Ooh. I would customize my game-winning layup to a pump fake, between the legs, spin move, reverse layup,
but
and win the
game. It ends the game.
Yeah.
You just make the layup and walk off the
floor. I know,
floor.
but I mean, a highlight. That would be a sweet highlight.
And that's the state of basketball today
yes,
in
it
2020.
Really it really is.
Allie, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. We wish you the best of luck against Colorado Mesa and against Western Colorado this weekend.
Thank you.
We got to take our final timeout. When we come back, we talk about our Trailblazer Weekly Game of the Week. It is just that. Dixie State going to host Colorado Mesa, the #1 team in the RMAC, coming in to the Burns Arena. We'll break it down next on Trailblazer Weekly.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
Hey guys, how are you today? Good. I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I bring the Halo world to life.
Is that you?
That is me. I wasn't a math genius, and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things.
I want your job.
I want you to have my job.
This graph is square.
Pretty close.
Artemisia is all the sagebrush, but there's your needle and thread. Which one is this?
Come down. Turn, please. Ready? Sodium carbonate.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere. And just growing up the way I grew up, and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
Hey, what's up, man? Hey, good. You played before, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's all state in high school.
Good, let's run some routes. Give me a post route.
All right, let's do it.
We may not always play good, but when we want to look good, we come to the Dixie State Campus Store.
Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center. We'll see you there.
Today's show is brought to you by Rock Canyon Bank, serving Utah businesses and agriculture for over 25 years, with locations in Pleasant Grove, Orem, Provo, Spanish Fork, Fillmore, and at 94 East Tabernacle, right here in St. George. Rock Canyon Bank, back to banking. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome inside Trailblazer Weekly as we wrap up the show on this latest edition. Great interview with Ali Franks. Of course, the Trailblazers will host Colorado Mesa and Western Colorado this weekend. And I honestly had to keep it together during the Ali Franks interview, but I'm just really shook up about this fact or fiction loss. So I don't know if I can even finish the show today. Just really shook.
Well, I mean,
I hate losing.
That would go,
especially when it involves our own student athletes and the players that I cover on a weekly basis.
If you're not able to finish the show, it would go by exactly how you performed in Facts or Fiction, by getting the first point right and then just not being able to finish. So it's very characteristic for you.
You said that when we play pickup basketball, that's how it is. I'm on fire the first couple games and then taper off.
And I'm always off the first couple of games, and I come on late. So I think human characteristics translate into fact or fiction.
Speaking of not playing anymore, did you catch the news about Eli Manning during the break?
I did. Yeah, Eli Manning retired. Unbelievable, crazy.
He's done.
First time in 22 seasons that we won't have a Manning brother in the NFL. So pretty remarkable day, a noteworthy day for the NFL.
Pretty crazy stuff. Speaking of remarkable and noteworthy. From here on out, for the rest of this semester, the rest of this year, we're going to have this last segment be our Trailblazer Weekly Game of the Week. So in our pre-production meeting earlier this week, we sat down and we looked at the schedule and we said, which of these 4 basketball games coming up, or we could look at, we looked at women's swimming, we looked at everything, at all, home, away, everything will be included. And this is what we as the Trailblazer Weekly staff identified as our Trailblazer Weekly Game of the Week. And for us, and then there was a lot to choose from because these basketball matchups this weekend are really important for both the men's and women's basketball teams. The men's team, if they can win both games this weekend, they're putting themselves in a really great spot before heading back out onto the road. But for the women, they're in a position where, you don't want to call it a must-win, but they're in a position where, if you were to lose a couple of games more at home and you're 7-6 in the conference, and all of a sudden you're falling from 4th and maybe even all the way out right now with still a lot of basketball to be played, but you want to stay, 4th, that 4 or 5 spot as long as you can, and then try to make a push to be able to host an RMAC postseason tournament. Not just get in, you want to host a quarterfinal at least. So Colorado Mesa, the number 1 team in the conference, 11-0, undefeated, 15 in conference play, 15-2 overall. Haven't lost a game since, ironically, their last game inside the Burns Arena. Not to Dixie State, but to Northwest Nazarene on November 23rd. They will be in the Burns Arena. They have cracked the top 25 for the first time this season. They're at number 22 in the NABC, or in the WB, the women's basketball top 25 for the Division II, and ranked 22nd, undefeated in conference, that right there is our game of the week. Dixie State, Colorado Mesa. Going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And just like you mentioned, right now in the RMAC with the women's basketball, you lose a couple games, you might be out of it. But at the same token, if you beat Colorado Mesa this weekend, that might be the momentum that you need to carry you through the last dozen games or so in the season to get you into maybe a third seed, a second seed, and at least a fourth seed to be able to host a home playoff matchup. But it's like you mentioned, it's a good team coming in. Their last loss, ironically enough, is inside Burns Arena at that kind of preseason, whatever you want to call it, tournament that Dixie State hosts for the last couple of seasons. Dixie State really has an opportunity right now to send a message to the rest of the conference, and ironically enough, they can do it at home at a place where they've struggled, like we've mentioned earlier on the show. But if you go out and beat Colorado Mesa and give them their first conference loss to this point in the season, you send a message to the rest of the RMAC saying, I know we've struggled at home. Here's the message. We are here to play. And if you do that, it'll certainly make sound waves throughout the conference. And certainly Western Colorado, who's going to come in the next day, is going to know that you just beat the number one team in the conference. And gives yourself a lot of momentum going into the final, 2, 3, 4 weeks of the season. So it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a hard game. And, you don't crack the top 25 rankings for nothing. They're a very good team, and they've proven it so far this season. But if Dixie State can squeak out a win, it will be a huge momentum booster for the Trailblazers.
Well, and you look at Colorado Mesa and what they do. They don't score a ton of points every game. So you can look at them, their overall stats, and they only score 63 points per game. So they don't score a ton, but listen to what they do defensively. 45.2 points per game is what they're allowing through 17 games this season. Teams are shooting just over 30% from the field against Colorado Mesa. They're shooting 26% from three, and not that you can guard the free throw, but they're only shooting 62% from the free throw line. Colorado Mesa out-rebounding its opponents by 5. Almost doubling the assists per game, and Colorado Mesa forcing about 17 turnovers per game. That scoring defense number that I gave you is also not just tops in the RMAC, but tops in the country in Division II. 45.2 points per game is what Colorado Mesa is averaging. So you've got Dixie State is a pretty good defensive team itself, and when everything is clicking and when they're moving the ball and playing like Coach Gusson wants them to be, they can do some things offensively as well. So something they'll have to give in this game, a good offense against a good defense, and that's how Colorado Mesa gets it done. The final score of Colorado Mesa and Fort Lewis on Saturday was 38-35 in women's basketball.
Wow.
38-35. And so Colorado Mesa won a game scoring 38 points, and they get it done on defense. That's how they win games, and that's what Dixie State will be up against. And I'm excited to see what they can drop offensively to try to counter that, and then to try to get some stops defensively as well.
And it's going to be a great test, like we mentioned, because earlier in the show, in our first segment, we talked about the struggles that Dixie State has had at home scoring the ball. And so you put it on paper, you got a great team that plays great defense, and you got a team at home that is struggling in the scoring department. So, a naysayer or a bystander, a nonpartisan, person not like ourselves would say, Dixie State's going to have a tough time of it. But again, it goes back to you need to change the narrative of you at home. You have an under 500 record at home, and you need to go out and make a statement to change that narrative. And this is the game to be able to do it. You have to come out, and if you're Dixie State, it shouldn't be hard to get up and focused for this game. It's the number one team in the conference, and they're top 25 in the country. You have to come out focused against this team. And maybe we've seen it in the past before where they've lost a few of their home games where, maybe UCCS comes to mind where you don't come out necessarily focused, or you overlook a team that maybe is better than the record shows. But you have to be able to be focused for this game, and I don't think that the Trailblazers will have a problem with that because it is the number one team in the conference. And if you can come out and get a home conference win against the number one team in that conference, I think it'll send sound waves throughout the rest of the conference saying that you are here to play.
Yep, it's tough weekend for Dixie State, and like I said, that's the game we identified as our Trailblazer Weekly Game of the Week. for this Trailblazers women's team. It's the number 1 team on Friday, and it's the number 3 team on Saturday. So you've got an opportunity to really help your case and solidify where you're at the time. Colorado Mesa is a few games ahead of Dixie State, 4 games ahead of Dixie State in the standings, but that Western Colorado, they're only just a couple games ahead of Dixie State, and you're going to play these teams twice. So, you win these games, you get the upper hand, and it can hopefully wrap it up when they go on the road. So should be good times inside the Burns Arena. Again, both teams will play Colorado Mesa on Friday, 5:30 and 7:30, and then the same thing Saturday night. They'll host Western Colorado, 5:30 women's tip, 7:30 p.m. men's tip. We'll have those games for you right here on these very stations and channels that you're watching this game on.
Blackout night. Wear your black shirts.
It is blackout night. So wear your black shirts. And thanks for tuning in today. He's Drayson. I'm Carrick. We'll catch you next week on Trailblazer Weekly. Go Trailblazers.